going to need a regular domestic sewing machine, and we're using a Singer Heavy Duty, your fabric, a sweatband, and these sweatbands are available at capsupplyco.com. Interfacing, and this is a heavier weight adhesive interfacing, a closure for the back, and bias tape or a bias tape kit. Either one will work. And that's your pattern, and this pattern is available at properfitclothing.com. So go ahead and cut your pattern out on the outside of the black lines. Next, you're going to lay your pattern on your fabric, trace it, and cut it out. And then go ahead and mark the top of the front panel. You're going to want to end up with 2 sides, 1 front, and 2 tops. Next, we're going to be adding the interfacing to the front panel, and all you have to do is iron this on, and we're using a piece of paper to go over that so we don't get the iron all sticky. And then go ahead and cut that front panel out. Next, take your top 2 panels, place right sides together, and sew along that top edge. And keep in mind this pattern calls for 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then go ahead and cut the remaining fabric from the edge. And now we're going to be showing you how to set up your twin needle. And this is super simple. Just install like a normal needle, set your machine to zigzag with 0 width, and thread 2 spools of thread the same exact way. So we're going to show you 2 different options for adding on your bias tape, and these are just 2 different bias tape folders. The one on the right is just one you can get at any hobby store, and the one on the left is available at capsupplyco.com. We are going to be using the one on the left just because it's a little bit easier for us to use, and we've been using it for a while. But honestly, they both do the same thing, so use whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever one you're using, line it up with your presser foot and then just tape it right on your machine. You definitely are going to want to make sure this is secure so that way nothing's moving around when you're sewing on that bias tape. Now all you have to do is cut your bias tape to the measurement of the folder and you're ready to start sewing. Then go ahead and add your bias tape to that top seam. Next, take your top 2 panels and your front panel, place right sides together and sew along that top edge. Then go ahead and cut the remaining fabric from the edge. Next, add your bias tape to that front seam. Now take your side panel, place it on the front panel and the top panel, and sew along that edge. Do this process for both side panels and then go ahead and cut your remaining fabric. Now go ahead and add your bias tape to those two side seams. We're going to be adding a side strip to the inside of the bottom edge. And these side strips can be found at capsupplyco.com, and this adds for a nice bottom edge, a little bit more structure to the cap. It also helps with adding on the sweatband. So next we're going to be adding bias tape to the back of that opening. And for this video, we are going to use the pre-made bias tape, and there is a link for this in the description. And you can get this in a bunch of different colors, but if you want it to match a hat, I recommend using this bias tape making kit. And you can check this out in our other videos. We show how to use this. It's super simple, and it comes with a bunch of different sizes, and it's very easy to use. We definitely use this kit more often because that way we can match the fabric with our hat. But for the video, we're just going to show you that there are other options out there. Next, we're adding that double fold bias tape onto the entire top edge. And you can get attachments for your machine to make this step a lot easier, but we're just going to go by hand and work slow. Next step is making the brim. Go ahead and grab your brim, whatever brim you're using, trace around the outside and down just a little bit past. Then from there, grab your sewing machine and do a straight stitch all the way around that arch. Now go ahead and trim about 1/4 inch from that seam. Flip the right sides out and then start maneuvering your brim into position. And if you are satisfied with the look and the tightness, you can skip this next step, but we are going to be adding some stitches to the top of the brim. And we are using a guide that will be available on capsupplyco.com. It just helps with getting nice, neat stitches around. As you can see, we're doing one line at a time, adjusting it, and then doing the next, and then making sure they're nice and even. Honestly, you can use any guide for this step, something that just keeps that brim from sliding all around. that your brim is nice and tight into position, I recommend using a zipper foot for this, and then go around and make a seam along that back edge of the brim. Pull towards the back of the brim to make that fabric nice and tight as you sew. Now go ahead and trim about 1/2 inch from the inside of that brim. Now you're going to mark the center front of your crown and the center of your brim. Place the right sides together, and I recommend using a zipper foot for this part as well, and start from the center and sew towards the outside. And once you have one side done, do the same for the other side. This helps keep that brim in the center of the crown. Now fold over the back edges and do just a top stitch, and this is going to make that back edge look nice and clean. Then repeat this process for the other side. Now we're going to be attaching the sweatband. This step we made our own attachment, and we made this out of heavier stock paper. All you have to do is make a little sleeve that your sweatband fits in there nice and snug, and then go ahead and tape that onto your sewing machine. It serves as a guide so that way the sweatband doesn't slide all around while you're sewing it onto the crown. Once you have your sweatband guide into position, go ahead and roll over the edge and then just start sewing straight all the way around. And it is really that simple. You get a nice top stitch on the outside and the sweatband will be nice and attached on the inside. And we are using professional sweatbands from capsupplyco.com. These are millinery grade and very awesome for making caps. And now we're going to be adding on a plastic snap to the back for a closure. You can literally add whatever you want onto the back. Cap Supply Co. has a huge variety of different components you can add for closures. So go ahead and roll that sweatband over towards the inside and sandwich that plastic component in between and just sew that right on. And it is really just that simple, and go ahead and do this for the other side. I do recommend using a heavier weight needle for this process because you are sewing through a decent amount of material. And now we're going to be adding air vents to the cap, and we're just using eyelets. You pretty much just want them to be evenly spaced and centered in each panel. Once you have your marks, go ahead, cut holes, put your eyelets in, and press them into place. And if you don't have a press, pliers work just as good for eyelets. But if you're looking for any tools that we're using specifically, we post all the links in the description below, so go ahead and check that out. And then last thing you want to do is go ahead and steam your cap. And that is how you make your 5-panel visor. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think. If you have any ideas, send them our way and we'll try to make it happen for you. But we're going to keep the videos coming at you, so we'll see you next time.